This video is sponsored by Surfshark, the best VPN on the market. Surfshark is an app or browser extension that allows you to change your location to access websites in other countries and keep you safe and secure from hackers. Using Surfshark, we here in Ireland can access other countries' Netflix libraries or other streaming platforms like DAZN in Spain for all those important Premier League games. Surfshark keeps you safe and private by protecting everything you do online. Everything. When your device connects to the internet, all that information is, in a way, blurred out. Surfshark is particularly useful for keeping you safe from being hacked if you use public Wi-Fi. Let's say you're in a cafe, you're at college, you're out and about, they've got you covered. Surfshark allows you to use one subscription on unlimited devices, meaning you can share your account with friends or family or that neighbour who's a little bit cheap. On top of all of this, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can also upgrade to Surfshark One, which includes the VPN, an alert system for breaches related to your data such as emails and credit cards, and an antivirus software for your desktop. Our sign-up offer gives you Surfshark VPN for a little over €2 a month. Simply scan the QR code on screen right now or use the link in the description. What is up, my friends? Delighted to say I'm once again joined by David Lynch, and we're going to have a look back over yesterday's game against Manchester United and, of course, a little contract situation discussion as well. David, firstly, how was your new year, my friend?
Yeah, really good. As said before we came on, kind of just nice to switch off from football a little bit. The games fell quite nicely, didn't they? So we had that kind of nice break after West Ham into Manchester United. I'm not sure it did the team any favours, but I was certainly appreciative of it because they don't come up very often, and it is going to be just game after game after game now, isn't it, in the weeks that come ahead. So yeah, it's really nice to switch off, spend a bit of time with the family. Although I did get one comment on my YouTube, some guy saying, these Trent developments have come out and how dare you, if you want this serious channel, you haven't uploaded anything. So wow. I wrote a little snarky comment back to him and he deleted it. So yeah, so I believe I'm allowed to spend time with my family. So that was nice anyway.
I had a few people saying, have you and Dave have fallen out or something? Why hasn't he been on? I was like, no, he's away with his family for a few days. Let the man have a bit of peace. I'd never disturb somebody when they're away with their family, like even if the Trent situation or anything else is starting to break. I mean, a man's time with his family is precious. So, and in this industry, with as busy as it is, you got to take every minute you can. So, absolutely. I hope you had a good time anyway, and I hope you enjoyed the new year.
No, I did. No, thank you very much. I really did.
So, look, I mean, I want to talk about the game first yesterday, but what I want to start off with, I guess, is one, I want to give United a little bit of credit, David, because I thought the result was probably a fair reflection of what we've seen in the game. It certainly wasn't a one-sided affair. So I wanted to get your take on that, and if you agree that United were probably value for a draw.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good starting point sometimes. You just forget that the opposition are allowed to play well, and it is worth acknowledging. I mean, it's kind of a weird one. I end up being a bit of I bang the drum for Bruno Fernandes in a really weird way because I think because of his character and what he's like, and I totally get why people dislike him, they sort of start to pretend that he's not a really, really good footballer and has been Manchester United's best signing in the last decade or whatever. And I thought he just absolutely pulled the strings in there. But I thought they had a few performers, work their socks off. They had a really good plan as well from the manager. So I do think it is right to give them credit. And I think for them, it's so reminiscent, isn't it, of the Liverpool teams of the past that haven't been very good. They've gone to United or United have come to them and they've given them a game despite that fact, really pushed themselves and performed well. And you just have to acknowledge that United did that. And as you said, I totally agree that they were kind of full value for the point that they got.
Yeah, again, it's always fair, as you said, to acknowledge the opposition because we tend to look at things just through our own landscape and our own eyes. And, we feel the frustration, but it was certainly a much, much improved Manchester United than we've seen against Newcastle. And as you said, it's not a coincidence that Bruno Fernandes was back in that midfield then.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I watched the Newcastle game while I was away as well and just kind of, you almost felt at the time, you're not going to see the same team here against Liverpool because, well, obviously they got a couple back. Ugarte as well had a bit of a rest, and that seemingly helped him out. But also, just they step it up when they play Liverpool. And I mean, it was the case last season as well, wasn't it? 3 meetings between the sides, and Liverpool somehow didn't manage to beat them even once. So it is just a factor in these games, and Liverpool have been on the other end of that when they've had terrible sides that have gone to to Old Trafford and won, or terrible relatively anyway. So yeah, sometimes you just have to kind of accept that that's how it is, and it truly is kind of one of those where the form book goes out the window a little bit.
I think we should probably be honest and say that a lot of the emotion that's going to be involved in a conversation around contracts and that, or the game yesterday, was, I guess, exacerbated because it was Manchester United. And I certainly know, I'll admit, last season, David, I was so frustrated in that draw at Anfield that I couldn't get my head around it. Like, I was a broken computer system. I just couldn't figure it out. And yesterday, when I look back at the game, I have to say I thought it was a fair reflection of the score. And I'm frustrated, but ultimately it is as we were going into the weekend, really. There's been no ground gained, and I don't understand the narrative that some Liverpool fans and, of course, opposition fans have, that this is title race blown wide open. It just doesn't compute with me. We're 6 points clear with a game in hand. Another game week has now gone past. We've got another tricky fixture out of the way. I just don't buy into it personally, David. I still think the title's very much in our own hands.
Totally agree. I mean, as a starting point as well, we shouldn't go too far on what Manchester United did either. I've heard sort of summaries that suggest that they kind of took Liverpool apart, and because they had that chance at the end through Maguire, that it would have been a fully deserved win. I don't agree with that at all. It was a fairly even game, and the reason that felt so shocking, and the reason that it felt that Manchester United had done so well, is because an even game between these two sides is Manchester United massively raising their level and Liverpool dropping theirs at the end of the day. So that's why it maybe felt, okay, well, we've seen Manchester United play well, therefore they played brilliantly and far better than Liverpool. I don't agree with that at all. And if that Van Dijk chance he gets at the end goes in, you're not having any massive complaints that Liverpool have stolen it. I mean, look at the kind of expected goals numbers, look at the shots, look at the general domination of the game. United were good, but they weren't that good. We can stop short of that. And then in terms of what it means in the title race, I mean, I know people do get carried away with the latest results, and they'll probably think that, this is how we're going to perform between now and the end of the season. But if that's the case, and Liverpool are going to be a bit more wobbly on the second half of the season, then is that true of Arsenal as well, who just seemingly can't buy a goal from anywhere and are terrible in attack? They don't look like a threat to Liverpool without Saka at the moment, and their total lack of goals throughout the team, really. And Chelsea are, is it 10 points back and having played a game more as well? So, I just don't, like you say, the weekend in terms of the title race, it's as you were. There's nothing has really changed in terms of that. And I also don't come away from this game thinking that this is Liverpool's level. We've seen so much evidence over Slot's first sort of 20 odd games, isn't it, of what the actual Liverpool level is. And for me, they still look like a solid kind of high 80s, maybe early 90s if they get a fair wind team. And I don't think anybody else in the Premier League looks anywhere near that. So for me, they're still easily the best team in the league by some way. And by the way, the highest expected goals generated and the least expected goals conceded. So the underlying numbers show that they're the best team, and they've got a 6-point advantage, and they've got a game in hand. So, if anyone's losing their heads over what was it, not their best display at all, but they got a point out of it in a game where we've said the form book goes out the window a little bit. I just think people need to kind of pull it back a little because it really isn't time for panic. And I kind of spoke to someone at Liverpool today, actually, who said to me, look, we know we're going to drop points sometimes. We know other teams are going to drop points sometimes, because you're not going to go and get 100 odd points. So, this is to be expected. This is what a season's like. So, just get that one out your mind. Fair play to United. Move on and just get back on a winning run again.
So when I'm in my chat, when I'm the voice of reason, there's a problem. When I'm on my channel and I'm the voice of reason, they're saying, don't panic about this, it's all fine. Yeah, I think we can say some people blow these things out of proportion. But a couple of things I wanted to pick up on. Firstly, I think that United chance at the end would have been offside anyway. Yes. I'm almost certain Xerxes would have been off, so that wouldn't have counted. And I was looking at the fixtures, and I think this is important in a title race, to be honest, but we play ahead of Arsenal for the next 2 league games as well. So we get the chance to strike first, put the points back on the board. They play on the Wednesday after we play Forest away. Difficult game for us, but they've got a North London derby. Then we go and we play, I think it's Brentford away, sorry. And then they have their game at 5:30 against Villa. So we've got a chance to put the points on the board twice again and put the pressure back onto them. That, to me, David, I think is important where these games fall in a title race, because psychologically, you can strike a blow each weekend.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think that can be helpful at times, particularly if you're the side that's leading as well, because it just makes the gap look even bigger. I always think that's really helpful. I mean, I've heard talk in recent weeks of Arsenal. They've had a couple of weeks where they've been able to play before Liverpool, and they've been talking a lot about, if we can get within 4 points or whatever, we can that starts to put pressure on Liverpool, and then inevitably they've ended up dropping points anyway, which is quite funny. But so he's put no pressure on Liverpool whatsoever. But I think for Liverpool, if they're the ones extending their lead, that doesn't feel great for Arsenal. I mean, if Liverpool can go and win at Nottingham Forest, then it's 9 points, and then the level on games as well for that brief moment until Arsenal play. So yeah, it does make the table look particularly good for them. And even if Liverpool do drop points again, this is going to happen between now and the end of the season. I think they're not going to win every game. Even if they drop points, it's still, there's almost then a pressure for Arsenal. We have to close the gap. We have to close the gap. That's the beauty of having this huge cushion that they've worked up and that they fully deserve to have, by the way. So, they're in a really nice position. And the hope is that they can keep, as you say, over these next couple of weeks, if they can put the wins on the board first, well, I suppose the wins are all that matters, full stop. But it doesn't help Arsenal's mentality going into their games that they immediately feel like they're on the back foot.
It's great, and I remember being on the other side of that when we were in title races with Manchester City, and a draw just felt like a dagger into the heart. You thought, that's it, we can't, because they were title races, Dave, the likes of which I'll never see again. I don't think, how you can put up high 90 points tallies and not win a league title it's nothing short of disgusting. So I guess I'm hoping that the muscle memory for a lot of these players as well, who have been through and on the other side of a title race, is going to stand us in good stead. Arteta's going to keep rushing back players, I think. And I may be too arrogant about this, but I just don't think Arsenal are ever going to be Manchester City. And I just don't think they're going to chase us down. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I wanted to move on to the awkward conversation now about the contract situation, because the narrative has always been that the club are relaxed, the players are professionals, the manager's relaxed. Nobody thinks these contract things are a distraction. I've never bought it, to be honest, David, because I think human nature is what it is. And Mohamed Salah said it was in his own mind. That performance from Trent yesterday, I think people need to understand a couple of things. One, he's a local boy, so he's going to be criticised more because of that. And two, fans will always excuse a lot if they think 100% effort is being put in. If they think a local player particularly is running through a brick wall, if he's having an off day with his range of passing or whatever, people get it. But when you have that languid kind of posture that Trent naturally has, and you put in the contract issue, and you put in that performance yesterday, it's inevitably only going to lead to fans thinking one thing, and that's that his head's not there.
That's it. That's the big problem, because you and I can sit here and we will never really know if the reason that he played so poorly yesterday was the fact that his contract situation and the bids that are going in, they are distracting him. We can't get inside his head and know that, but I only know what I was hearing around me in the ground and what the perception is, which is that his head is already in Madrid, for the first time ever. And I know it's been a running theme on social media, but that yesterday was the first time ever around the press box I've heard people shouting and suggesting that Trent his head is not in the game and that he's thinking about Real Madrid. So, like I say, that's the only thing that matters is the perception, because the perception has the ability to turn things a little bit toxic. And for Trent, it's a difficult situation now, because I think it's admirable that initially he kind of said, well, I don't want to play this out in public, I don't want to talk about it. But I think it's becoming increasingly clear to me that he's been keeping his options open, that he doesn't want to say no to Real Madrid yet, that he doesn't want to tell Liverpool that he's going yet. He doesn't, maybe he's not quite made a decision, but if that was his aim, to kind of use Real Madrid as leverage in talks with Liverpool, and also to just leave that potential move open to himself if he ever wanted to try it, I think its ability to kind of keep it quiet and keep it in house he just can't do it any longer, because it is becoming public. Real Madrid's bids, we know about those. We know about the fact that he's being splashed on the front page of Marca every other week. It's not being played out behind closed doors. It's absolutely fully public. So I just think the time whereby he can kind of keep himself to himself about this is gone now. It's over. So it's a really, really tricky situation whereby I think he basically has to come out and say kind of what he plans to do or address it in some way, because if he plans to perform like that going forward, which I doubt, I hope that was just a one-off, and we'll see the best of him in the coming weeks. But if it does happen again, those shouts will start up again, and they were very loud and prominent during yesterday's game. As I say, for the first time I've experienced since this whole saga began. So yeah, the perception is hurting him more than anything else, and got to do something about that.
So, as you've mentioned, Trent wanting to keep quiet is fine, but when you're dealing with Madrid, the narrative is going to be wrestled away. They're, as you said, all over market. They're briefing journalists. Journalists are posting it. Fan accounts are posting it. And one side are doing all their talking publicly. And that then hurts the club. So people look towards Trent and think, we get it, you want to keep it private, but it's not really private anymore. It's out there in the public domain to some extent. I also don't think, Dave, that he was helped by the Mirror story that came out the day before about the £78 million 5-year contract offer from Liverpool for Trent, because I'll be honest with you, when I read that story, I thought, well played the club if this is true, because it very quickly then says to Trent, make your mind up, because that is a more than fair offer. I've been critical of the club for the finances, but if that offer is true, £300,000 a week, I think the club can't do any more. I think genuinely that is a more than fair offer, and it's going to come down to what you want to do now as a player.
Yeah, one thing I would say about that report is I think in the same publication it was reported a couple of weeks ago that Salah's deal was done, and that is definitely not the case. So I would take that one with a pinch of salt, if I'm being honest. Don't want to disrespect anyone, but I'm not entirely sure that that's accurate and spot on, really, to be honest. But as you say, the talks are ongoing now. I'm sure they're going to be getting close, at least, to an idea of what Trent would want and what Liverpool's kind of limit where they will go to. So, I just think a decision needs to be made either way. It's, this can't run on for the remainder of January. It can't really run, and if anyone's thinking about letting it run on beyond that without someone saying something definitive, then it's just going to create a toxic atmosphere, which, I don't think it has affected Liverpool at the moment, because, look at the table, look at the Champions League table, look how they're doing. I don't think it has. But as I say, I'd never experienced that before, where it turned a little bit toxic against Trent yesterday for the first time. And this could be the start of it now. It's, for every week that we don't have a resolution on this contract situation, or some honesty and some clarity from him in terms of what he wants to do, because his hand has been forced by Real Madrid's actions, then I think it's going to get worse, really. And, if that starts to affect his performances and we see more of that, there's a strong case for kind of Conor Bradley to come in. There's a strong case for change there, because, yeah, you can't have that happening. It was just really poor yesterday, to be honest, and a really poor atmosphere around it on the basis of what everybody knows. So, yes, something has to move, really.
So I guess moving away from just the Trent side of it, the 3 contracts, to see Richard Hughes be in the club now 6-7 months, and the club still not have any breakthrough on any of the 3 deals, Virgil, Mohamed Salah, and we know about the Trent situation, but they both come out publicly recently and said, no, nothing. Now, I guess that can be a little bit of semantics, but otherly, they both come out and said, no news to report, nothing new. You can understand how people are looking around and thinking, what's going on? Because, everybody, and I certainly agree that it was not a problem of Richard Hughes making. He inherited the problem, but he did come into the club, and every report out there, whether it was yourself, myself, journalists all over the place, were saying that the first thing in his inbox was sort out the contracts. And it hasn't been done. And people are starting to question the appetite from the club to actually do this. And I think it's a fair concern, because to not have any of them done in 6-7 months when we didn't have a particularly busy transfer window, I think people are right to start to ask questions about it, because it does seem a little bit drawn out, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, one thing I would say about this is, I don't think any of us, and because football is just this massive lie and a big secret as well a lot of the time, is don't have a really good kind of grasp of how these things tend to play out. Therefore, so I find it kind of hard to say, it should take X amount of time. We tend to not know, when sometimes these things are in the works for a long time and then they come out, and we don't really know how long it takes and what they're grappling over and the real concrete details about them. And so, I don't want to speak from an area where I've not got kind of expertise on it and kind of, say it should be wrapped up by now. Because I'll be honest, I don't really know. And as someone who worked in football and worked for clubs and It's very kind of smoke and mirrors the whole game, really. So it's kind of hard to say whether he should have it wrapped up or not. But I think, one thing, the longer it rumbles on, the more it's creating an atmosphere, not just around Trent, but just general dissatisfaction. And as I say, that's even now pouring into kind of match-going support, who generally is kind of, it's a bit more low-key about these kind of off-field issues, doesn't really get brought up massively. But we are starting to see it now. So at the very least, I'm starting to wonder if, is it time for us to see a bit more of Richard Hughes, to maybe hear from him about what's going on and what's taking so long, to as much as he can give us any kind of insight, or it just feels like something has to give, because we're in January now, and that for me was kind of I didn't feel like it was a cut off in terms of panic, because I thought that the three players were all going to go to other clubs and start talking to them. Obviously Trent was the obvious risk with that, but I don't think that's the case with Salah and Van Dijk. But we're just getting very close to the kind of end of the season where all three would go, and you're just starting to wonder what is going on there. Is this going to fix itself? So I personally, my view now is we're kind of getting to the point where I wouldn't mind hearing from the sporting director about what's going on, how close we are, whether, I just think honesty is the best policy sometimes in these situations, rather than keeping it behind closed doors, allowing either the players' representatives to set the agenda, or in the case of Trent, rival clubs to do that. I just think this policy of silence isn't really working, because that vacuum is being filled by other parties who don't have Liverpool's best interests at heart. And you just wonder, is it time for Liverpool to actually say something, either on or off the record?
Either that or some firm deadlines of when these things need to be, best offers need to go in or whatever, because I get everybody wants to be treated respectfully and well, but ultimately somebody has to have a hard nose at these negotiations, and everybody in them is coming from a selfish perspective. The agents want the most for the players, the club want the best for the club, and we all hope we get the common ground in the middle at some point. And as you said, these things tend to work out last minute. In a transfer window, how often do we see transfers go right to the last day of the window? So let's wait and see on that one, David. But I hope, as you said, that they do start to trickle out a bit more information now, because fans are getting a little bit restless at the idea of not only the contract situation, but of course the season being destabilised by this, because it promises so much at the minute. And on a promising season, I want to just raise one point with Arne Slot. It was probably the first time yesterday in the United game that I'd started to question a couple of selections around substitution times and whatnot. I thought the timing of, particularly when he brought Bradley on and a few others, could have been a little bit different there yesterday. So probably a little bit of a first complaint for me about Arne. I just want to know what your thoughts were about those timing of substitutions and perhaps team selection even.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to say as a starting point, he's been pretty flawless so far this season, but it was the first time I felt that, maybe he hadn't got it exactly right, and he has been very, very good otherwise. And for me, the starting 11, I don't think Diaz in the false nine worked in this occasion, because they had three defenders there to kind of mop it up and deal with it. So one of them could go, and he didn't leave a big gap behind. So Maguire was just coming out, crunching him constantly. So I thought from a selection point of view, Jota would have been far better there. And then when he made his changes, again, when Liverpool went 1-1 and then he goes Jota and Núñez, for me, didn't need to go gung-ho in that way. There was a lot of time left in the game. I think Jota would have been better further pushed up rather than in that kind of weird attacking midfield role. That didn't kind of work for me, and Núñez didn't do particularly well when he came on either. So you would have preferred a more orthodox setup with maybe Jota in the centre forward role. And as I say, maybe a game for Endo at some point as well, particularly when it goes 2-1. Liverpool would surely could have seen that out better if you had someone like Endo with his defensive nous on the pitch. The one I would kind of sympathise with him on is Bradley. I think if Bradley had been fit and it hadn't been a hamstring injury that he was coming back from, we would have seen him much, much earlier in that game, given the way that Trent was playing, because Slot is not scared of making that substitution whatsoever. I just think that was one where they were very, very careful in terms of fitness and not wanting a setback with a hamstring injury. And that is, at the end of the day, that is the right decision, because, you can risk it and throw him in there, but if you get another injury, that's a blow with the games that are coming up that Conor Bradley's clearly going to play, and also Trent's form. If there's a worry there, it's going to dip. You're going to need Conor Bradley. So I thought he kind of was right on that one, but a few question marks, and probably for the first time. So we shouldn't probably be too harsh.
Absolutely, he's more than enough credit in the bank, and this is just me nitpicking, to be honest with you, because as you said, he's been almost flawless since he's come in, and certainly got enough credit to make an error or two. So I wanted to go through some quick fire, I guess, transfer topics in and out, if that's okay, David. So Federico Chiesa's agent came out today and said the plan is to keep him at Liverpool, despite all the links to Italian clubs, which we've been speaking about for months, I feel, at this point. And you've always said the club's plan is to get him fit and keep him here. So there's that. And then there's also, of course, the link to Darwin and AC Milan. I'm not sure if you'd seen much about that one. So just wanted your thoughts on those two.
Yeah, so on Chiesa, as I said for a while, it wouldn't have made sense to put this much work in to do all this individual pre-season with him and put so much into getting him fit and ready to start games, especially coming into this period where you've got League Cup, FA Cup, a couple of Champions League dead rubbers there as well. There's real opportunity for him to get minutes now, and he is fit and he's in training, so it wouldn't have made sense to push him out on loan. And my understanding is he's still very much happy at Liverpool and wanting to make this work now after a bit of a tricky start. So, fingers crossed he stays fit now and we can see more of him, because I'm really excited about what he can bring when he is fit. And on Darwin, I saw suggestions that Liverpool would accept 50 to 60 million. I mean, I have absolutely no doubt they would. I think the big question is whether that would ever come in, that sort of offer. I think if Liverpool, I don't think Liverpool would ideally mess with the squad in January. I don't think they want to do that. But it would take some turning down if an offer of that size came in for Darwin in January, to be honest. I think they would bite someone's hand off for something like that, because for me, he's just very much a candidate to go in the summer. I expect that will happen given his role, his seeming unhappiness at that, because he want to play more football, and the fact there probably is a market out there for him as someone who does score and get assists, and probably in a weaker league would look far better. And so I do think there'll be a market for him, but I'm not sure it's going to be that kind of 50, 60 million mark. And as I say, if someone did come in with that in January, then Liverpool would be all over it.
There was one thing I'd seen that was a potential 5 million loan offer, euro, from AC Milan, with an obligation to buy for an additional 45 million euro, which I think would be a 44 million pound all in. I was wondering if that wasn't a genuine offer. I mean, I was wondering how you think it may be viewed by the club.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot would depend on kind of Chiesa's fitness and what they think they can get out of him between now and the end of the season. And maybe, if there's an attacking option out there that we think for next season. I mean, we've seen those links, haven't we, to Turkey, and whether there's something in that. Because it's not been shut down to me that he's a player that Liverpool like. It's just that at the moment, with all the attacking options they've got, there's just nowhere they would fit him in. So that's kind of interesting whether it brings that into play. But the key question is whether AC Milan would follow that up. But I think that would be a very, very kind of tempting offer for Liverpool, because, as I said for a while now, really, I think they're in a position where it's kind of ready to cut the losses on Darwin, and every hope that they can get a little bit of a tune out of him that they need to over the remainder of this season. But I think that's when the kind of the line will be drawn. But if a big offer comes in January, it'd certainly be tempting. I wouldn't say that they would categorically turn it down if it was big enough.
A couple of transfer incomings that I'd like to potentially talk about was a lot of stories suggesting City were in for Omar Marmoush. I'm not sure if you'd seen much about that one when you were away. I think it was reported actually you were away. And then, of course, there's the whole Martin Zubamendi situation, where various reports have suggested that at the least he's now open again to the idea of leaving Sociedad. So I wanted to know, as you've said all the way through, that Liverpool would at least be open to that option with Zubamendi if indeed he was available from Sociedad.
Yeah, so on Marmoush, that's an interesting one, because if say Darwin Núñez, there was something in that, and that there was potential for movement out there, and this is that with Marmoush fits a lot of the profile. So if that is a play that they definitely like, then there's real potential there to make that move and get ahead of that. So not one I think you could kind of rule out. And on Zubamendi, yeah, I mean, the big question is, I've seen so many reports kind of speculating either way that he is ready in January, he's not ready in January, he wants to wait till the end of the season. I mean, if he is ready to move in January, I find that utterly bizarre, by the way, in terms of why not just go in the summer. That was to spend an extra half a season at your hometown club just seems crazy to me, really. So I am a little bit sceptical that he wouldn't just wait till the summer and move then. But if he is on the market, Liverpool did like him. That there's no reason to have changed their mind on that. I still think they are a little bit light option-wise in midfield. I mean, again, the fact that we didn't see Endo yesterday just kind of tells you where he is in the pecking order in terms of where he is in terms of Slot's trust. So, I certainly wouldn't be against them getting another midfielder in, but I'm just a little sceptical over whether Zubimendi will actually move in January or whether that's one that we have to wait until the summer to see what happens with.
I just hope if it's with Liverpool and they're getting the vibes they want and they're waiting till the summer, I hope they get something concrete from the guy, because the last thing we need is for that to go to the summer and the whole situation to get to Willy Wonky again. Just to finish up, I guess just a straight out question: have you heard much with regard to Liverpool doing any business in January, and also a bit of a crazy link to Morgan Gibbs-White?
Yeah, so in terms of whether they'll do anything in January, I always err on the side of probably not, but I just think you would be daft to rule it out at the moment. I still don't get, huge vibe that a left back is going to be brought in. And I know there's an issue there. I'm still of the mind that wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of Simicast, to be honest, in the coming games. I think Robertson's just not quite there at the moment, is he? But doesn't feel to me like that's going to be a priority for this window. But perhaps something in midfield. There's always a chance that a long-term target like a Zubimendi does come up. So that is one to kind of keep an eye on. And on Morgan Gibbs-White, an interesting one really. I mean, he very much plays in that kind of Dominic Szoboszlai, Harvey Elliott role. Curtis Jones is taking up a lot of minutes there as well, isn't he? So I just don't see how Liverpool have any room for him. As good as a player as he is, and I also note that he's kind of 2 years out from the end of his contract at this point. So I find that, or maybe actually kind of 18 months, 2 years out from the end of his contract. So around the time that he will be looking to sign a new one with Nottingham Forest. So I would bear that in mind when there are links between him and all these different big clubs.
Well, David, I think time has beaten us, but I just want to again ask you what you've got coming up on your Substack and, of course, in your own YouTube channel this week.
Yeah, so got a piece on Trent up on the Substack today as well. It's a free one, so if people want to just kind of have a look and see what's on there and get an idea of what pieces on there are like, then please do check that out at davidlynchlfc.co.uk. And also on YouTube, of course, press conference tomorrow, build up to Tottenham, and then post-match review. So looking forward to that one.
Always a pleasure, and thank you guys so much for tuning in once again. We will catch up with you after the Spurs game, and until then, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.